What's going on, gamers? Here we are back with some more of the Ascent, and today I'm going to be going over my favourite augmentations and what ones I feel are the best in the game. So if you want to pick some augmentations that are really good for your build for both defence, offence and a little bit of crowd control, then stay tuned. That's coming up next. Welcome back, gamers. As always, for all things gaming, for all things Xbox, then why not hit that subscribe and bell icon? I'll bring you all the latest and greatest in hints, tips, guides and builds, and just some fun gameplay reviews of the latest upcoming games. But for today, I'm here to show you which mods I feel, or augments should I say, I feel really stand out. So first off, we're going to kick it off with the damage types. So what I'm going to be doing with this list, I'm going to be giving you a rundown of some of the best damage types going, some of the best defensive types and some of the best crowd control, and then I'm going to give my opinion on what I feel is the strongest overall. As always, this is just my own personal opinion, so if you've got a difference of opinion, why not chuck it in the comments if you think I've missed one off the list or you think that I've missed a mark on one of these. But for now, let's go on with the damage type. So the first one we're going to be going over is this one right here, Spider Bolts. With a cooldown of 30 and a consumption of 65, it's really nice. You can use it very often, it doesn't cost the world, and it's just an out and out good damage move to have. They're going to follow you around and they're going to absolutely smash the targets when they come into range. Also, it scales with cybernetics. Most of the time you're going to be having cybernetics on your build because you're going to want at least a little bit of crit. So cybernetic increases the amount of actual spider robots, meaning when you've got an absolute abundance in cybernetics, you're going to have a load of them spider bots and it's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of damage. I actually used this quite a lot during the later campaign and I found they really helped out. They kind of make it so that the enemy gets a little bit overwhelmed, sometimes they're taking a bit of the aggro for you, and they do an abundance of damage. Definitely, in my eyes, this is one of the best kind of damage mods you can have in mid to late game, and really helpful in pretty much all builds, because you're always going to have cybernetics, and a lot of times you're going to have a lot in cybernetics. Next up, and one of my personal favourites, is Hydraulic Slam. This augmentation right here, I feel not many people tend to use it because it's one of the earliest, or it is actually the earliest one you get. A lot of people spec off of it and don't come back to it. If you are spec'd into motorics, honestly the damage of this can last you even into endgame. If you have a lot spec'd into motorics, this right here is one of the strongest moves in the game that you can use consistently. So with just a cooldown of 3 and a consumption of 60, as you can see, a punch with massive hydraulic force propels enemies away from you, and that's another fun thing. Even on some of the largest mechs, when you hit them, it does a little stagger motion, meaning that you can jump past them or just relocate and move yourself about a bit. It's a really good move to have, and one of the best ones that you can have all the way through the game if you wanted to use it that way. In fact, the only bad thing about this is how close range it is. Other than the close range, it doesn't really have any drawbacks. This can hit well over 2000 damage late game, and most of the crowds, once you roll into them and do this, will absolutely disintegrate. So if you wanted to, you could use it all the way through the game and have a lot of fun pretty much disintegrating all of your foes with that one move over and over again. Next up, and this is probably going to be a bit of a controversial one, but when we're talking about damage, I'm just trying to put it out there for what the highest damage ones are, and the IO converter is definitely there. So this right here, weapons, projectiles and explosives now deal digital damage only. This mod will convert all your damage output to aggressive cyber strikes. Honestly, there is nothing quite like this for dealing with those mechanical foes. On the fleshy targets, this is absolutely awful, so I would probably say this will be one that you could swap in or swap out depending on what actual area you're going to. But at just 25 cooldown and 30 consumption, it's one that you can use an awful lot. And honestly, if you've got a really nice weapon that's upgraded, this right here can mean the difference between taking things down in a matter of moments or taking a few minutes, depending on what kind of playstyle you've got. This deals the most damage you can get on mechs and is an absolute beast. So if you're in that area and if you have a lot scaled into your biometrics, this right here can definitely tear things apart and is really good against those mechanical foes and the bigger mechanical bosses like the mechs. Now next up, and another one that's great with your weapons, is this one right here, Lock on Fire. Empties the remainder of the clip with perfect accuracy and extra proficiency. Basically this scales with your motorics, and it just means the higher you've got it, this right here is going to do an abundance of crazy damage, especially if you've got really high ammo consumption guns, such as I would probably say the minigun would be one classic example. Aim at your enemy, use this, and it is just going to empty everything into it. If you want really high burst damage and you want to have a lot of fun with your gameplay, you can definitely do a lot worse than this. Obviously, the only bad side, it does have 24 cooldown, meaning that you won't be using it all of the time, but again 24 isn't so bad. So if you're going into that motorics, you can definitely have a lot of fun with this, but I would say probably one to use only if you've got a lot of crit damage, you've got a big magazine size, and you've got a weapon that you've kind of spec'd into a little bit. So this could be really nice if you've got a fully upgraded gun, it's just going to do the job. Now coming over to my personal favourite, this I believe is the best damage you can get, the Neutron Beam. With 15 cooldown and 75 consumption, you can use this an awful lot. It works out really well and it just does everything. A continuous energy beam which pierces armour and causes massive damage. That's one of the fun things about this, it pierces through people, and as you can see it doesn't worry about armour. So it is absolutely outstanding for those tougher enemies. If you've got the big elites, if you've got the bosses that you just can't seem to handle, this right here is your go-to boss killer. It absolutely nukes things. Also, because it's got pierce, it means it's going to knock everything for 6 because it's going to go through everything. If you're far enough off, you can pretty much disintegrate everything even before they get to you. This is one of, if not the most powerful move in the game for damage, and it is just a lot of fun to watch as you kind of kamehameha across the screen and most times destroy everything before it even has a chance to get anywhere near you. Now the only downside to this I would say is the fact there is a continuous beam, meaning that you're kind of stuck in place. But most times, because you can dodge roll in this, even if you're going to get hit by say a missile or a melee guy coming in, just dodge roll out of it, wait a little bit, roll off into the sunset, then activate it again. You're not stuck in place so much so that you can't actually stop the beam because dodge roll stops it automatically, meaning this is definitely for me one of the most powerful moves in the game. So next up, and we're going to be going over the crowd control, and there's only 2 for this because I believe there's only 2 that really stand out in my mind. The first one is this one just here, one of the better looking ones in the game and just a whole bunch of fun. Now this one is Joy Run Dragon. With a cooldown of 18 and a consumption of 80, it's a really nice move. It is a little bit on the heavier side for the consumption I feel, but the cooldown's quite good and it scales from cybernetics. With cybernetics, how much you put into it means how many targets you can actually go through and stun. It initializes a dragon, causing stasis to foes. When you hit those foes, if you manage to kill one of the enemies whilst they're in that stasis, you're going to see they'll pop and do a bit of an area effect damage. A really nice move, a lot of fun, and one of the best CC moves in the game, as well as one of the best looking. This one really does make it so that you can kind of stay away from people as much as you want, as long as you've got enough energy, because obviously 80 is a little bit on the high side. But all in all, definitely one of my favourite moves in the game, and like I said, one of the best looking. Next up, and my personal favourite for crowd control, the only bad thing about this, it scales off of frame. Meaning if you haven't got any in frame, you'll probably want to use Joy Run Dragon. If however you're using a tank build or you're kind of using a heavy weapon as such and you've got a bit spec'd into frame, Stasis Stomp is just absolutely amazing. You can get it really early on in the game from cluster 13 and it's one of the best moves I've found for crowd control and just out and out, just making sure that everything is exactly how you want it. Now as you can see, it's only got a cooldown of 4 and a consumption of 85, so it's got a tiny bit more on the consumption rate, but the cooldown is ridiculously good. If you're spec'd into energy, if you're spec'd into a little bit of frame, this right here is definitely the go-to move and it's a lot of fun. Again, I feel the move actually looks like one of the best ones in the game. Just having the people stuck in midair is really fun to watch, especially as you slam your foot down on the ground and kind of make sure everyone around you just cannot do a thing. Again, if you can knock them about whilst they're in that, and if you can manage to kill them, they're going to do that explosion effect, damaging the area around them, and just really good overall for damage and crowd control. This I feel is one of the best things you can have on any of your tanks because it just means you're so survivable and you have a lot of fun while you're playing the game. Now, one thing to note, if you have raised things in the air, one thing you want to make sure is that you're aiming high, because if you're not, you're going to be missing all your shots and really confused as to why things aren't popping or why you're not doing any damage, like you'll be able to see in probably some of the background footage. And the last category we're going to be looking at will be the defensive side, so stuff that's going to keep you alive. So for the first one, we're going to go over this one, and that is none other than biometric stamp. With a cooldown of 18 and a consumption of 80, this one is just a ridiculously good move to use once you start learning how to use it. It scales off of biometrics and increases the healing capacity. This right here can pretty much full health you if you're in trouble. What it basically does is, from the time of activation to the time of when it's finishing up, whatever damage you have taken, it's going to replen that. Meaning, like I said, if you're in those tough battles, you can quite easily replen all of your health. Obviously, if you're going to die before this kicks in, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble and you're just going to fall over. So you'll want to make sure if you're using this, you're very, very tanky. Get your health as high as possible. Get some damage about yourself, make sure you can survive those encounters, but as long as you can survive for the time period of this actually being up until it kicks in, it means you're going to get all of your health back and you'll survive pretty much all encounters. I would definitely say though, this is definitely one to use with as much health as possible. I tried using this with low health and you're just not tanky enough. If you've got some really nice defenses, if you've got some really nice health in your build, this right here is one of the best survivable mods in the game, and biometric timestamp is very much overlooked, I feel, most times. Next up, and I'm going to be going over hyperfocus. This one right here is absolutely amazing for tank builds. If you've got a lot in frame, I would highly recommend using this one. If you put it in conjunction with any healing augment, you'll be nigh on unbeatable. And it's one of the most fun ones to use because every time someone's shooting at you, every time there's a missile, anything that's going into that bubble shield, it's going to go into slow-mo. One thing that I've found was absolutely vital whilst using this, you're walking with a big bubble dome, sometimes bullets are still going to hit you. If, however, you crouch, it means that everything's going to go over your head. The duration scales very much with your frame, so if you have nothing in your frame, this move is awful, stay completely clear of it. If you're going very, very frame heavy, you're going to have that bubble shield up ridiculously long, and like I said, if you pair it with something to do with vitality, like a timestamp or something else, you're going to have all of your health, because most of the time things just aren't going to hit you. You'll be able to replenish it, and you'll be able to have a lot of fun moving around and not getting hit by much. The only thing I would say, be a little bit mindful of probably the melee guys, just because they do not slow down, it's only the bullets and such. Now last but definitely not least, this one right here is by far the best augmentation at the moment for survivability, and that's overclock. With a cooldown of just 20 and a consumption of 60, this one does it all, it really does. So it increases energy regeneration, tactical recharge and reload speed. This is really pretty much the Swiss Army knife of the augmentations, and it means you don't have to have anywhere near as much skill points allocated into other things, because this right here is going to help you out. Now the thing it doesn't mention, the more biometrics you've got into it, obviously it boosts its efficiency, but it also replens your health. I think if you're not being shot for around about 2 to 3 seconds, your health regens, meaning if you're ducking into cover, if you're able to get away in time, you're gonna get a big chunk of health back or completely replenish all your health altogether. If you're looking for a mod that just does everything and makes it so that you can survive pretty much every encounter, has low cooldown, low consumption and is ridiculously powerful, this is definitely the one for you. At the moment it doesn't actually state anything about the health regen, so I'm not 100% sure if that's intended or if it's just some kind of a glitch on their part. If it hasn't got the health regen, it may well be that this one wouldn't be perfect for your build, as I feel that's the kind of icing on the cake kind of thing. But as it is at the moment, this is definitely my number one pick, and I definitely feel it'll go into pretty much any build you're using. Right, you guys and girls, I hope that's helped a few of you out. As always, there's a few more augmentations out there that are really good. I was going to chuck Tentakill in there because I really enjoy using that one, and there's a few others like Jet Propulsion Leap, but I couldn't pick them all. They were my top picks. If you've got a different opinion, let me know. But as always, for all things gaming, for all things Xbox, take care. I'll see you on next day.